I had a moment where I called my mother in tears and I was crying.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I had just officialized the signing with HarperCollins for the book with Kinswomen, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, and I was just like, "This, we had been talking about. I had been preparing this for months, and we had a call, we had negotiation going on, and like when our agent called and said it's official, these are the contracts,
Yeah.
and I saw my name in these contracts, my full name, and I was just like, wow, like this is insane. And the first person I called it's my mother,
Hmm.
and I cried. I cried on the phone because I felt as though like this is it. This is a moment where my name is transcribed, my heritage is going to be shared, and I get to create this legacy that like I think my grandmother would have been really proud. I thought of my grandmother and I just thought of us, like not
Yeah.
me, but I felt so happy to be able to fulfill this, because we've come, from a long, long way.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 3 of the School of Business Makers podcast. I'm super excited about today's conversation because I have an amazing guests, and we'll be discussing about understanding creativity and fashion with Yseult Mukantabana. And I'm super excited about this conversation. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please click on the notification bell, subscribe to this channel, and let's dive deep into the conversation. Today conversation, I have an amazing guest. I'm super excited about this conversation. She's an entrepreneur and social activist. She's a creative person as well. She's the co-founder and designer of a kid modern fashion brand called Yoa New York. And she's also passionate
Mhm.
about sharing knowledge. She's the co-host of a podcast called King's Women, which have different conversation and bridge the gap between women of color and white women. And my guest today is Yseult Mukantabana. And Yseult, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me over, Christian.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Wonderful. Actually, this is the first conversation of our season 3. So I'm super
Oh,
excited you being our
nice.
first guest on this new chapter of season 3 that we are starting. Can you tell me how does it feel? We are during a pandemic. How are you feeling? How are you doing about all that?
Ah, I think that a lot of people, it's been like a challenging time in weird ways. Um, Kind of like relearning how to socialize and interacting with people and dealing with like everyone's kind of like aftermatch of I hope the worst part of the pandemic. But basically, I've been really busy during the pandemic. So I was dealing with the pandemic, but Kindling was taking off. So it's been like a really busy time, and I've been just working and focusing on work, which I think
Okay.
helps a lot, I guess.
Interesting. And you are a young entrepreneur, and can you share with us this stage in life where you are? How do you feel about where you are now and what you're able to accomplish till now?
I think given the state of the world and uh, my health first, my body being able and me being not being sick, I think that's like the first blessing in everything. Then I am so grateful that I'm able to be in a place where I do things that I really love, and I don't think that like I take that for granted ever. So I'm really grateful to be in a space where I'm really involved in things that I really care about, and that I have the chance to choose, to pick and choose like where I want to be. And that's kind of what I would do. Like that's where I wanted to be in my life in my 30s. It's a thriving time. I
Yeah.
feel so much more wiser. The 20s were really hard, and I think they're like the gutter of your youth.
Mm.
You're trying to figure things out, and I figured out where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and I'm doing just that. So I feel really grateful.
Okay. Can you also walk us through your journey? How did you ended up being in the creative space? How did you ended up being in fashion? How did you be ended up being an entrepreneur, having your own brand?
Mhm. So I went to school for communication, which specifically was interpersonal communication. But I knew that I wanted to be in a creative space, but I really wanted to go to uni. It was kind of like a priority for me. Before I did anything, I needed a diploma, something that
Mm.
could like give me a backbone of anything I dive in communication. And my degree was so interesting because it was very much about analyzing and dissecting the world that we live in. So I think that it complements basically anything that I get myself involved in, which in the creative world, I think that you find your medium to express yourself. So um, after having done internship and working in the fashion industry and doing fashion week in New York and working with big designers and big production companies, and I was so lucky to have this like crazy experience with really like top people and also specifically people of color, which I'm so grateful for. um, I was able to see where I wanted to sit as a creative, and I always wanted to mesh it with, something that matters and something that like is pleasing and with the eye. So aesthetic and message is like always something that I care about. So eventually Yoa came about because I love children. I don't have children myself, but I love children. And I think that there's not enough advocacy for kids to be themselves, and that we try to shove them in like bubbles and in spaces that doesn't promote personalities, but rather that takes what they have to be before they even know. And so I wanted to create a brand that just gave space for that conversation. Like, what are we doing to our children? Where are we putting ourselves into? And so there's a conversation in regards to gender free clothing for adults, but it's like, you're working on fixing things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start at the beginning. Like, as children, I remember I hated pink. I hated like dresses. I hated skirts.
Mm.
And I just wanted to wear the opposite of that. And I don't know. Today I wear dresses. I love pink. I'm so not in that like
Yeah.
fight with that color, with that pink and like feminine kind of like focused fashion. But I just wanted to create something where children got to be children, like comfortable, aesthetic, cool, practical, and so that's how Yoa came about with my brother Noah, who's now at Parsons, which is a school of design that's based in New York City, but he's studying in Paris. And so we started having a conversation, and we created Yoa. And I think that like it's very much about fashion, but it's very much about the conversation around it. Like, you can't buy Yoa without knowing what Yoa is about and
Mm.
without understanding that you're creating space for a conversation for your child to tell you who they are. Like, I don't want to wear pink or I don't want to wear blue. I just want to look cool. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of what we wanted to do with that space
Interesting.
with Yoa.
That's
Yeah.
that's fabulous. And um,
Mm.
growing up as a kid, did you had dreams or desire to own your fashion brand one day, or you had completely different dreams as a child?
As a child growing up, for a long time, because I struggled with like school for a bit when I was younger. My whole prerogative in life was to get a degree in
Mm.
university, to hold a degree in my hand and to say, okay, I'll figure the rest out, but I really want to be a graduating, I really want to graduate, and I want to have like a diploma
Yeah.
and create that legacy. And I think the idea of legacy became like something innocent without me having a word for it, but it was something that I was already installing in everything that I was doing. Early on, even if I grew up in Europe, I really wanted to do this. I wanted to know where I was from. I wanted to sit down in libraries, read the history, like understand everything that made who I was. And I wanted to make sure that I honored that like heritage and I honored, the sacrifices, and I was able to live a life where I thrived, and not survived. And I'm really grateful that my parents were really supportive in absolutely everything that I did. So, when I struggled with school, I had tutoring, I had support. So you know, I don't believe in like self-made people. I don't believe in self-made like success. I think that you need a team, you need people that love you, you need support. And I absolutely was given that from a very early time. My parents were not going to take anything less than the best that I could do.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was really a saving grace. And, being in Europe, being a Black child, and being told that you're not enough, having parents are just like, you are more than enough.
Yeah.
You don't believe it, but they're like, okay, if they say so, I'm going to trust it. So I think that's where I was growing up. Like I really wanted to create a legacy, a new story for us, for me also in this world.
Interesting. It's always important when we have a good support system around us. And for you, your parents were there, a good support system when you were growing up, struggling with school, but they're still there, encouraging you, pushing you, telling you you can do more, you can achieve more, etc.
Yes.
Especially, it's sometimes missing in some of our African cultures where you can
Mm,
find someone struggling, but there is no one encouraging them or helping them or guiding them find another way. They can be good in math, but they also struggle with arts, or
mhm.
they're not good in math and they are good in art and they would like to become artists, but there is no one to mentor them or to encourage them to venture and
Yeah.
create in that area. I would like to
Yeah.
understand, how does it feel you being a creator? You do a lot of things around creativity. How does it feel to showcase your talents, your craft to the world out there?
Right now, because I'm so involved with the kinswomen, it's so hard for me. Like me being in a creative space has to be super like intentional. So
Mm,
I have to make it happen, like either collaborate or find people that see eye to eye with me and like place myself in that space just because that's not my primary activity as of now. But I like that. I like that I like that I have the opportunity to do that, to cater to something in me that's like it gives me the drive, it gives me the energy to continue doing what other spaces. Um, I focus doing that in New York. When great projects come along, I dive in, but I'm picky. I choose who I want to work with. I have that luxury of being able to choose my
yeah,
environment, choose who I want to collaborate with. So recently, when I was in Rwanda for 6 months, I did some stuff, but then I went back to New York. I did a film with these two brothers that were doing like this really cool um, feature film that they were making music on
yeah,
that was really amazing. I styled it and creatively directed it, and that was really amazing. And so, but when I was in Rwanda for the 6 months before that, I collaborated with motion. I wanted to style and kind of like create a whole narrative on a whole like kind of like book or look. And that was really beautiful because I got to collaborate with with an amazing designer that's motion, with an amazing photographer, and I got to creatively direct a whole shoot that just like I felt right for myself.
yeah,
And then I did other things that when I was here, and it's just like these like really organic moments that feel like I'm not forcing myself. I'm not doing it because I have to survive, and I'm maintaining the artistic fiber in me and relationship as well because I really believe in like maintaining relationships and nurturing them. I see relationships and professional relationships as important as friendship relationship where like
Mm.
I might not be doing yoga things right now, but like I'll do it later. And so like, upkeep of these friendship and collaborations are really important, like so I'm grateful for that. And now I have a big project that I want to work with. I want to work on that's also creative, but like such a world that I'm not familiar with at all, but I was invited in creatively and I'm like, okay, cool. So um I've collaborated with an organization here in Rwanda called Gisimba. It's an after school program. It's
Mm.
located in Yamihambo. The now director is like a third generation director of an institution that's been existing for 50 years.
Okay.
And they saved 400 children during the genocide against the Tutsi. And they were like an adoption agency. And then they became an after school program after 2012. And so the director is young and he found me on Instagram. I think through that I with the the whole narrative and the whole look that I did with motion, um, he wanted to talk to me, and we found out a way to collaborate. So now I'm going to be working on redesigning their uniforms,
Yeah.
which is so funny because when he approached me, I was like, I don't know anything about like the education child,
Mm.
like that's not me at all.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't know how I can like contribute or participate or collaborate with you. And so he was like, "No, I just like what you do with Yoa, and like I want to redesign our look." And I was like, "Oh my God, yes, I can do that."
Yeah.
And they do amazing work too. Like, everything has to feel right. And they do this trauma informed support to the children in their after school program. They work with families and their kids. And it's like such an amazing organization. And I was just like, why do I not know about you before now? Like, I felt so ashamed that I didn't know, of such an institution. So that's how I find my way to like nurture my creativity in a different way. And it's always like doing something creative, but then finding a way to say something or to participate in something greater than me. I think that's my goal.
Okay. And do you have a moment in your life that you are proud of and how that moment looks like?
Oh man. I That's hard. I have a hard time finding space for myself to like really acknowledge. But I think that like I had a moment where I called my mother in tears and I was crying
Hmm.
and I was like, wow, this is crazy. I had just officialized the signing with HarperCollins for the book with Kinswomen, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, and I was just like, "This." We had bbeen talking about. I had been preparing this for months, and we had a call, we had negotiation going on, and like when our agent called and said it's official, these are the contracts,
Yeah.
and I saw my name in these contracts, my full name, and I was just like, wow, like this is insane. And the first person I called is my mother,
Hmm.
and I cried. I cried on the phone because I felt as though like this is it. This is a moment where my name is transcribed, my heritage is going to be shared, and I get to create this legacy that, like, I think my grandmother would have been really proud. I thought of my grandmother, and I just thought of us, like not
Yeah.
me, but I felt so happy to be able to fulfill this, because we've come, from a long, long way.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. I think the future generation will be proud of the foundation that you laying for them.
I hope
Um,
so.
what is yes? What is the best advice that you ever received about either in life or in the creative work that you do?
Uh, what I don't know if I received it through seeing other people doing it,
Hmm.
and I realized that like the only way you can be successful in anything in any space is by knowing how to collaborate with people. and knowing the ethics and the respect and the grace that you have to carry in spaces where we can't grow alone.
Mm.
So learning how to nurture friendships and learning how to be genuine is something that helped me a lot and helps me a lot. Like I end up people that are grateful to me and I never really understand it, but I think it's like, you feel energy and like people are genuine to you and you're genuine to them. And then you find yourself in the place that you actually dreamed of. So I think that's the best advice that I've gotten and that works every time is, being genuine and nurturing relationships as if they were like little plants that you nurture and you give water to and like you let grow organically.
Yeah, and you need to invest in them as well, either time, because
Mhm.
what you get depend on what you bring in. You can't expect
Exactly.
certain results and you have nothing to bring on the table. Relationships
Yep.
are very, very important.
Hmm. Yeah,
You've
it's reciprocal.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
You've been in different markets and countries, and you were exposed to different cultures and
Hmm.
different creativity. Um, how are you seeing currently the Rwandan creative sector positioning itself in the future? And what can we do to keep our authenticity as we are also adopting and embracing the new trends and things that are evolving in the creative sector?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of trends in creative spaces. I think people sometimes want to like hold on to something that's working for others as if it's going to work for you. Like you have a formula and you kind of want to work on it, and so that you can like you two win in your own way. And I think that like I find that we feel connected to each other and things that feel so specific to you.
Mm,
So instead of me feeling like I need to do what other people are doing, it's like more nurturing the individuality and the authenticity of what we're creating so that we really are authentic and like connecting to like it might feel weird and like individual and like no one is doing it, but like I have connected with things only when they feel so, so, so specific.
mm.
Like mainstream things, it's like, yeah, you can buy in it, but the emotional hold that something specific and so detailed creates is amazing. And I think that like we need to keep that in mind when we're creating and just like being authentic, not forcing, trying to be so different or so whatever, but like organically just feeding into where do we feel the best? Like what feels the most authentic? And even if it feels so niche, I think that that's when people like thrive. It's because you're offering kind of like a story that's not being told and you're offering to the market of like ideas that exists.
Wonderful. I like the time when you said about the new project you're working on, helping the kid. You are adding to what you do, the social activism side of your work. Can you
Mhm.
share with us what is your purpose in life?
I'm sorry, what did you say? My
What is your purpose in life?
my purpose. Um I think my purpose is to be like I'm trying to be a good person.
Okay.
I'm trying to be a good person. That's my purpose in life. Like be good, be kind, show love, give back of everything that I receive, and really be grateful and remain grateful in like everything that I do, and be part of like things that are just like greater than me, so that I can like I don't know in no way participate, in what others are already doing. So that's my purpose in life.
Okay. And as a creator and entrepreneur, have you ever tried to do something and you fail at it? And how did you feel?
Um, No, I don't. I feel like I haven't done anything that I feel like I failed. I think that I struggled with fear for a long time. Fear was like kind of a block for me. And so like and everything that I was doing, I was like focusing on like what if it doesn't work out? What if people don't I try still fearful. Like I still sit here and like catastrophize
Mm,
everything that happens in my life and literally come up with the worst scenario possible.
okay.
And but at the end of the day, it's I have tried to really get rid of that, get rid of the fear and the apprehension and the 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 want of like control in order to just like do. And then if it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. It's okay. Like I feel like in everything that we do, we have to learn something and or try to just like get up and like continue and like, well, this didn't work, but I don't feel like I've had a moment where I failed completely. But I did have a lot of moments where I was very frozen and handicapped by fear of like doing anything. So for a long time, I didn't want to do anything because I was so scared that I would fail. You have like the fear of success and then the fear of failure. And I
Mm,
had both at the same time. And it's horrible. So that's kind of been my battle with that.
okay. And what impact would you like to create in people's life with the work that you do at the end of the day?
Uh, the impact that I'd like to do is or would like to have is like just invite people to question whatever it is that they're in and want to revisit what they think is normal and okay so that they're in a place where they can voice their true feelings and also feel seen. I think that like as human beings, we all want to feel seen and understood. And if I can create in everything that I want to create, I really want to have an impact of people feeling like they feel seen and understood. And because it just sometimes it can feel lonely to be in this world. So having a moment where you feel like, oh my God, you know, you too is like a really it can be such a powerful moment to make things different, to bring to bring like enlightenment to spaces and to like give birth to like real life changers. I like to use the example of like when like when you're hurting you have this weird rash on your arm and you're like,
Mm.
oh my God, what is this rash? And if you go to your friend or if you go to your brother or your sister or whatever and you're like, have you ever had this rash? You're panicking because you're like, what is this on my arm? But the second this person says, oh yeah, I've had that,
Mm,
you it becomes less.
yeah.
Like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but ultimately you're like, okay, it's not cancer, like they're alive, I'm going to be alive, everything's okay. So I feel like that's what I want to create, that's the impact I want to have. I want people to feel like, oh my God, I'm not alone, it's not as bad, we're going to be okay. It's
Mm,
the best impact that I'd love to have in people.
okay. And as an entrepreneur running the Kid Fashion Brand, what are the things that you had no clue before starting the business that you learn on the job?
I think I'm still learning a lot.
Mm,
There's no one that can teach you how to start a business or like how to do something. With yoga, it's interesting because I started it and then I had to put a pause on it because of, kinswomen taking off and taking time. Um, but I think that in these two moments, kinswomen or yoga, it's been a moment of like just realizing that like you're going to be learning so much and not being overwhelmed by not knowing, and like remembering that everyone's going through this. Like, there's no way. So I just learned to let go and to accept that there's things that I might not know, but uh, that was like my biggest hurdle. It's like having control, knowing what to do, knowing the answers as well. Like people would ask you like, "Oh, so how do you da da da?" And you're like, "I don't. I'm learning. I'm
yeah.
learning as I go." I'm
Mm.
not an expert. And I think that like that's how you invite people to you as well and to help you if you don't know. Because if you pretend to know, then people are not going to know you're struggling, or they're not going to know to help you, or to, give you a hand. So there's a lot to gain to just admit that you don't know, and admit that you're trying to figure it out as you go.
Okay, that's interesting. What with King's women, you have different conversation, bridging the gap between women of color and white women. What is the long term
Mhm.
plan of the things you like to see and would like to achieve in the future?
Um, I hope that like the conversation that we hold and the space that we have has a ripple effect on people, and that they're able to like have these conversations with their friends and their family and their companies.
Mm.
And so just making it easier for people of color living around a majority of white people, in the West, in Europe, or in America. Like that's the long term. Uh, I'd love to see um, more of like speaking engagement where we're like talking to people and like helping them where they're at with their allyship, um, being able to create spaces for people of color that like they feel supported and seen. But overall, just like um, kind of like a non-focused romanticization of the conversation, is just being super open and frank about the state of things, and not make it about a society issue, but like more as an individual issue. Like I really want people to understand that like racism is like it is a societal issue, and but it also reflects in individuals. And
Mm.
then it obviously I've experienced it in the hand of people that are the closest to me. Not the, like institutions, yes, but the daily life is like you go to the I don't know, you go to the store, you run into someone that says something weird, you have a friend that assumes something weird. So like that's the effect of the impact that I want to have with these women. But obviously being present in more spaces and having more conversations and maybe having another book deal. I don't
Mm.
know.
Interesting. That's lovely, and I'm sure you're so passionate about
Mm.
that, and you'll be able to achieve that. Let me wrap
I
up
hope so.
this conversation with my last question. What message would you have
Hmm.
to creators out there trying to find their ways in their creative space? What is your last key takeaway message you can have for them?
I'd say that I'd invite people in the career space to be closer to those that they aspire to be, and to try to put themselves in these spaces and these rooms and work on nurturing like healthy and reciprocal relationship with these people. Uh, and just yeah, that's I think that's the most important thing. And then things come naturally, like things come in. If you're talented, you find your space, you find your people, but you need to find your tribe to be able to thrive, basically.
Wonderful. And those are like the closing remarks. Find the people that you aspire to be. Find your tribe, because those are the people that gonna inspire you. And we are coming to the end of this conversation. And my guest was Yseult Mukantabana, who is the uh, co-founder of Your New York and also the co-host of King's Women. Um, if you like this conversation, please don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll speak to you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for watching this conversation. If you like, just subscribe to our channel, share with your community, and send us a feedback or a question for different other conversations that you like to see next being featured on the School of Business Makers podcast.